Thank you, Simona. How's everybody doing? Good morning. Are you guys staying warm? I grew up here, but I've gotten soft. I can't do it anymore. I bring you greetings from Orlando, Florida, where it was cold. It was 40 degrees. So I think it's all relative. I'm sure some of you guys would enjoy that weather now. I just want to spend a little bit of time talking with you guys, and thank you so much for the opportunity. Chaplain Jose, Chaplain Simona, and Angelise, thank you for organizing everything. But I just want to talk to you guys a little bit about positioning to impact. Positioning to impact. Growing up here in Berrien Springs, we didn't go on summer vacations. The reason being is summer was made for one thing in the Bedney household. It was baseball. We played baseball every summer since I was about 7 or 8. We started off at T-ball and went all the way through Little League. We played right behind Berrien Springs High School. And our summers were spent there on the diamond with the freshly cut infield or outfield, the nice white lines, and a game wasn't a game unless my uniform had dirt on it. That means I was giving enough effort. That means I was diving for balls. But an interesting thing happened as I progressed throughout the leagues. You advance based on your age, right? So start off at 7, T-ball, right? And then you move up each level. And you start off with a pitching machine, but then people start to pitch as well. And the thing about pitching is there's a thing called puberty, and testosterone kicks into young boys, and young boys become men, and there's muscular hypertrophy, and the velocity of the ball gets faster and faster. So at each level, I had to make adjustments as I was batting. I remember this one time I was standing in the batter's box, and I was excited because all that year I had been behind the ball, but I had a new technique to help me hit the ball and make an impact. So I stepped in the batter's box and I laid my bat flat. So normally you have it up, so it saves me time so I could just swing right through. And the first pitch came, and I missed it. Strike one. I took a step out of the batter's box and was frustrated, but thought, Danny, just focus more. Just give better effort next time. Your technique's okay. I think you can hit this ball. So I stepped back in, laid the bat flat, and really focused on the pitcher. And I saw him as he winded up, and I saw as his arm raised, and the white ball started coming towards me. And I focused on the ball, and I watched the ball as it came, and I swung, and I watched the ball go over my bat. Strike two. I think you can imagine by now I'm really frustrated. I'm getting angry. My technique was right. I gave right effort. I focused. But I'm not getting a hit. I'm not making impact. And as I step out of the batter's box, I start to hear, Danny. And I turn to the dugout, and it's not any of my teammates. And I turn, and it's not my coaches yelling at me, but the voice sounds familiar. And I hear, Danny. So I turn around, and my father is standing with his hands in the fence, Danny, move back in the box. My father told me to change my position. And at once, I realized what he was doing. You see, the ball was coming too fast. I was behind it. So if I changed my position, I would have more time to react. I followed my father's instructions, and the next pitch I connected and made an impact. So Andrews University, I came all the way from Florida just to tell you one thing. And if you don't get anything else from what I will share with you today, it is this, that when you get to another level, when you get to college from high school, when you get to the next level of your training, when you get to the next level of your purpose, when you get to the next level of your calling, when you are applying for grad school and you get to grad school, whenever you are trying to achieve the next level, you can try the same technique and your technique can be okay. And your effort can be there. There is power in your push. There is power in your effort. There is power in your grind, but I just want to remind you that there's power in your position. And where your father tells you to be is the correct place to be. And when you listen to the instructions of your father, you will connect. You will make an impact. I want you to get your phones out or your laptop or whatever you're on, and I want you to go to Luke, the 10th chapter. And there's a story here that I just want to pull out a couple of lessons. I'm just going to Steph Curry this, hit 3 points and be out. But I don't want you to go night-night on me. All right? My man right there. He got it. When you're there, say, I got it. Luke 10, and we're going to go to 38 and 42, and this is the NLT version. As Jesus and the disciples continued on their way to Jerusalem, they came to a certain village where a woman named Martha welcomed him into her home. Her sister Mary sat at the Lord's feet, listening to what he taught. But Martha was distracted by the big dinner she was preparing. She came to Jesus and said, Lord, doesn't it seem unfair to you that my sister just sits here while I do all the work? Tell her to come and help me. But the Lord said to her, my dear Martha, you are worried and upset over all these details. There is only one thing worth being concerned about. Mary has discovered it, and it will not be taken away from her. Jesus is doing what Jesus does. He's traveling around and he's going to Jerusalem and he's healing the sick. And he actually sent out 72 of his disciples and they're healing the sick. But some of you will attest to, and maybe some of the older generations, but ministering can be tiring. Giving of yourself to others can be tiring. And Martha, out of the kindness of her heart, opens up her home for the master. If we're being honest, it seems like Martha's spiritual gift is hospitality. You know that's a spiritual gift, right? So Martha is actually expressing her spiritual gift and being hospitable to the master. But she is so tied up in the gift that she doesn't realize the gift giver. But her sister Mary seems to understand this. And Mary seems to be in the right position. So here go 3 points I want to bring out. The first point is this: people will always have an opinion on your position. Martha came to Jesus. She was worried. She said, "Hey, Jesus, don't you even care? I'm doing all this work. Mary is just sitting there in position doing nothing." People will always have opinion of you, and to be honest, Martha is probably a little bit validated, right? Her concerns are valid. And what I think you'll realize in life, that people's opinions may be valid, but that doesn't mean you have to value them. What they say about you may be true, but that doesn't mean that you have to own it. People may give you their opinion, but you don't have to take it. And Martha was justified because a woman sitting at the feet of a rabbi was weird back in the day. And hopefully things have changed now, but a woman sitting at a rabbi's feet just listening to him was inappropriate. She should have been in the kitchen. That's the position she should have been in. And isn't it funny, too, that while society has all these places that they want to put us, sometimes it's our own family. Come on, somebody. It's our own family that questions the position that we're in. I remember going to med school with a couple of people, and they were only in med school because their parents wanted them to become doctors. This is crazy. They went $300,000 in debt to please somebody else. So I want to remind you guys that people will always have an opinion on where or what you should be, what you should major in, who you should date. Come on, somebody. Who you shouldn't date, what jobs you should take. But although people have opinions, there's only one opinion that really matters. And as long as Jesus is okay with your position, you should be okay. I remember they told me not to go into sports medicine. Everybody I talked to, they said, you shouldn't go into sports medicine. You're going to be divorced. There's no way that you can sustain a marriage and have kids because the team will want everything from you. It was valid, but I didn't have to value it. I appreciated their concern, but what God told me to do when I was a junior at Andrews Academy was to be a sports physician. So therefore, while I appreciate your opinion, it is not needed. Because my father said he was okay with my position. And do you think that my father would put me in a position that would put my family at risk? Do you think my father would put me in a position where my kids would be at risk? I don't think so. My father knows best. So while I appreciated all of the concerns, I pursued it. Now, the thing about people's concerns, sometimes they are valid, so what you need to do is create a system to make sure that what they say doesn't come true. Right? So the reality is sports is very involved. I'm away from home a couple nights per week, so we schedule that thing out. And I make adjustments to my work schedule so I can pick up my kids, so I can play with my boys. Right? It can be valid what people say, but create a system around you that allows you to be in the position that God wants you to be in. If it makes sense, say amen. That was the first point. People will always have opinions on your position. The second is listening is an important action we need to do more of. Yeah, Martha was doing a lot of things. She was physically doing a lot of things, and she thought Mary wasn't doing anything. But Mary was actually doing one of the hardest things. She was listening to instructions. Oh, you think listening's easy? I want you to turn to your partner. I want your partner to tell you about their morning, and I don't want you to say anything. Go. All right, how'd it go? How'd it go? How'd it go? Could you listen, or did you want to interject? How many of you guys wanted to interject? Come on, we're going to be real and free some people today. It is hard to just listen. There is a stat actually about physicians, and maybe some of you guys have experienced this. Physicians, on average, especially in, this was actually just all physicians, it's about 19 seconds that a physician can be silent before they interrupt. Anybody experience that when they went to the doctor's office? Thank you guys for being nice. That's very nice. I don't always feel safe in church, you know. They're always ragging on us doctors. The doctor told me I have diabetes. No, you have diabetes. You ate a dozen Krispy Kreme. You have diabetes. But thanks for making me feel safe. So as physicians, sometimes I have to, when I actually go into a room, I have to consciously not talk. So I say, how can I help you? And then I actually stay silent for a good 30 seconds. And I just listen. And the thing is, we really need to be active listeners. You guys know about active listening? You want to get your Riz up, fellas? Yeah. Learn how to be an active listener. Engage in the listening. You summarize what she just told you. Come on, ladies. Help me out. Would you appreciate that? Yeah. You don't just offer solutions. You say, what I hear you saying is, did I get that right? Yeah. You're welcome. I just helped you find your wife. Don't worry, I'll be here all day. But while it's important to listen to each other, and it can definitely help out our relationships with each other, it is also important to listen to God. And a lot of times we're not in practice of listening to God. We'll have devotion, sure, but it's us reading, it's us praying. But do you ever just stop and just listen to what he has to say? Do you ever sometimes just for your morning devotion not read anything and just listen? I remember I was in high school, there was this preacher that said, we like to ask God multiple choice questions instead of fill in the blank. Have you ever asked, what would you have me do today? Blank. And just listen. Hey, God, I'm between being an engineer and being a physician. Which one do you think? Or how about you say, God, what would you have me do? Fill in the blank. Ooh, that's scary. That's scary. He might ask you to be a preacher. And you know we don't make that much money. Well, I'm saying we. I'm not a preacher, but our preachers don't make that much money in the Adventist church. I can witness it. My dad was a pastor. That's scary, huh? But listening is an action that we should do more frequently. So much so that James actually says, be quick, right, to listen, slow to speak, slow to anger. Somebody also said that's the reason why we have 2 ears, 1 mouth, right? But listening is important. And listening is so important because, and who you're listening to, because you're consuming what they're giving you. You know, kids drop knowledge and they don't even realize it. I just picked up my son the other day, and I picked him up a little bit early. It was around lunchtime, so I asked him, hey, did you eat lunch? And he said, no, I didn't eat lunch. I want you to feed me. He didn't want to consume what his school was giving him, but he wanted to consume what his father had prepared for him. And some of us are consuming way too much of things that are not from our Father, but I just want to remind you that if you listen and sit at his feet, he will give you much to chew on. And you will have an abundance of wisdom consuming what your Father has prepared. Oh, we need to listen more. And here we go, final point. Worry simply distracts. Worry simply distracts. You see, but the Lord said to her, my dear Martha, you are worried and upset over all these details. There is only one thing worth being concerned about. Now, I know anxiety is a buzzword, and I'm so happy that we're very aware of mental health. Trust me, I'm a primary care physician. Probably a third of my patients, I am addressing some mental health concerns. And if you have generalized anxiety disorder, obsessive compulsive disorder, ADHD, panic disorder, with or without agoraphobia, I went to med school. Yeah, that's a big word. Then you need professional help, for sure. But I don't really think that's what's happening here. I think Martha has her priorities mixed up. And when your priorities are mixed up and you're emphasizing the wrong thing, it can lead to you feeling anxious or you worrying about the things that don't matter. I love Inside Out 2. Did you guys see that? Man, have you ever... The personification of anxiety was so real. It was so real. And the problem that Riley faced was anxiety wanted to take over all aspects of her life. And I would like to suggest, and I think the movie suggests this, anxiety has its place, or worry has a place, but when it overwhelms you, that's when it can be a problem. Yeah, I'm an associate program director of a family medicine residency, so there are 2 residents that really worry me. The first is the one that is worried too much about making a mistake so they don't make a decision. Analysis by paralysis. Paralysis by analysis. There we go. But the more concerning individual is the one that has no worry and has no fear and doesn't ask any questions and just does, and they end up hurting somebody. I wish they had a little bit of anxiety. There are some things that you should be anxious about. When you go to Chick-fil-A, you should be worried, have they put enough Polynesian sauce for these nuggets? Come on, somebody. You should be worried about this test that's coming up after. You should, a little bit. Should it consume you? No, it shouldn't consume you. But anxiety and worry can be a good thing if it's the right thing that you're worrying about. Right? To some degree, that's why you are where you are. It's why you achieved what you achieved. You were a little bit scared. You were like, I am not living with my parents. I'm going to college. The right amount of fear is okay. But when it's overwhelming, that can be a problem. So prioritizing the wrong things can make you feel overwhelmingly anxious. And Jesus appreciates Martha's hospitality, but he is challenging her priorities. Jesus seems to appreciate her efforts, but he's not impressed with them. Jesus doesn't need you to do a whole lot. He's got it. And he's not so much concerned about what you can do for him, because he loves doing for you. I'll close with this. I remember the most anxiety that I ever felt in my life. I was laying in my bed. Me and my wife had just gotten married, and I could not sleep. I was tossing and turning, and my wife is a light sleeper, so I was trying not to wake her. So I slid out of the bed. We had a small 2-bedroom apartment. And my mind was racing. My mind was racing because the next day I would find out if I matched into sports medicine fellowship. This was it. This was the dream. And in a couple hours, I would find out, is my dream going to become a reality, or am I going to have to shift? And I was worried. I've never felt anything like that in my life. So I went to our second room that was there. And I opened the Bible, and I landed on Philippians 4, 6, and 7. If you're not familiar with it, it says, "Be anxious for nothing, but in everything, by prayer and supplication, with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God. And the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and minds through Christ Jesus." The word that stuck out to me that night was with thanksgiving. I sat down at my desk and I took out a clean sheet of paper. And I started to thank God and write down what he had done in my life. And I started when I was 15 months and I was found face down in my grandparents' pool. And I died, but he raised me. I wrote down how I had to learn how to walk and talk again. He's good. I thanked him that I was supposed to be on medicine my whole life, and I only take allergy medicine. I thanked him for keeping me at Andrews Academy when I wanted to go somewhere else because it prepared me for what I needed. I thanked him for going to Oakwood College and the experiences that I had. And when I didn't want to go into medicine, he gave me signs letting me know to keep going. I thanked him for the trials of med school. I thanked him that they dropped the passing score of a class right to where I was so I could continue my education. I thanked him that although I only passed step 1 by a couple points, I did pass and I could continue. I thanked him for meeting my wife in med school who loves me unconditionally. I thanked him for her letting us couples match so we could go to residency together. I thanked him that in spite of me failing step 3 boards, I was even capable of passing and applying. I thanked him for the 4 interviews that I got for sports medicine. And gratitude has an interesting thing because anxiety will rev up your sympathetic nervous system, but gratitude has been shown to engage the parasympathetic. So I felt my heart rate go down, and I felt a peace that passes all understanding come over me. And I climbed back in bed, and I slept like a baby. The next morning, I got up and checked the computer. And the heart was still racing. And as I clicked enter, as I logged in, you have matched into Sports Medicine Fellowship at Meharry Medical School. People ask me all the time, Danny, how did you get to where you are? How'd you get to the NBA? How do you work with professional athletes? And I'll tell you this, Andrews, it's no secret. God positioned me there. I did everything that I could do, and I wasn't doing that well. I'm not that smart. I thought I was. Then I got to med school. But listen to your father, Andrews. Ask him where you need to be positioned. And I guarantee you, when you're in the position that he has designed for you, you will connect and you will make an impact. Thanks for allowing me to share my heart.